Have you ever imagined what it was like to be a captive in feudal Japan? When we think of samurai, we often picture honorable warriors, masters of the sword, bound by the strict code of Bushido. But there's a darker, more brutal side to this story, one that's rarely told. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the harsh realities faced by those who fell into the hands of the samurai. Forget the romanticized versions you've seen in movies. The truth is far more complex and often far more terrifying. Let's start by understanding who these captives were. They weren't just enemy soldiers. They could be anyone. Peasants caught in the crossfire of warring clans, spies, political rivals, or even members of a defeated lord's family. Their fate was entirely at the mercy of their captors, and it varied wildly depending on their status and the circumstances of their capture. A high-ranking general might be treated with a degree of respect, held for a hefty ransom or a strategic prisoner exchange, but for the common foot soldier or an unfortunate villager, the outlook was grim. One of the most common fates for able-bodied male captives was forced labor. Japan's landscape is dotted with magnificent castles, sprawling fortifications, and massive earthworks. Who do you think built them? While skilled craftsmen were involved, a significant portion of the backbreaking labor was performed by prisoners of war. They were forced to haul massive stones, dig moats, and construct walls under grueling conditions. Malnutrition, exhaustion, and brutal treatment from overseers were commonplace. For these individuals, life became a cycle of endless toil, with little hope of freedom. They were seen as expendable resources, tools to be used and discarded in the relentless machinery of war. For those deemed less useful for labor, or in times of particular cruelty, a much grislier fate awaited them. The practice of sujigiri, or crossroads killing, is a chilling example. While technically referring to a samurai testing a new sword on a random passerby, a similar principle was applied to captives. They became living practice dummies. A samurai might use a prisoner to test the sharpness of a new blade, to practice a specific cutting technique, or simply to display his martial prowess. These were not duels. They were cold-blooded executions, meant to hone skills and harden a warrior's heart. It was a demonstration of the absolute power the samurai held over life and death. And then there were the kubijiken, or head inspections. After a battle, it was customary for samurai to collect the heads of their defeated enemies as proof of their kills. These heads were meticulously cleaned, tagged, and presented to their lord for inspection and reward. It was a gruesome accounting process. Captives who were deemed unworthy of being kept alive might be executed on the spot, simply to add to this tally. A higher head count meant more honor, more land, and more prestige for the victorious samurai. The individual humanity of the captive was completely erased. They became mere trophies in a bloody game of honor and ambition. Let's not forget the psychological torment. Being a captive meant living in a constant state of uncertainty and fear. Prisoners were often paraded through the streets, subjected to public humiliation, pelted with stones and insults by the local populace. This wasn't just random cruelty. It was a calculated act to demoralize the enemy and reinforce the victor's dominance. Imagine the terror of not knowing if each sunrise would be your last, or if you'd be dragged out for a public spectacle or a swordsman's practice. This mental anguish was as much a part of the torment as any physical abuse. What about female captives? Their situation was often uniquely tragic. In a society where political alliances were sealed by marriage, high status, women might be forced into marriage with a member of the victorious clan. This was a strategic move to absorb the defeated family's lineage and claim their legitimacy. For women of lower status, the future was far more precarious. They could be forced into servitude, becoming servants or concubines in the victor's household. Their lives were stripped of all autonomy, their fates tied to the whims of their new masters. Their stories are often the most hidden, lost in the historical focus on battles and politics. However, it's crucial to understand that samurai wasn't a monolith. Practices varied greatly between different clans, different time periods, and even different individual lords. Some daimyo were known for their relative magnanimity, choosing to integrate defeated populations or ransom important prisoners. Others built reputations on their absolute ruthlessness. The code of Bushido itself was a complex and evolving philosophy. While it preached virtues like honor and compassion, its interpretation could be bent to justify acts of extreme brutality in the name of loyalty or military necessity. The idea of mercy as we understand it today was often a secondary concern to the primary goals of securing power and eliminating threats. So, where does this leave our understanding of the samurai? It paints a more complete, more human, and admittedly, more disturbing picture. They were not just poetic warriors, cherry blossom petals. They were products of a violent and volatile age, forced to make brutal choices in a world where survival was paramount. The treatment of their captives reveals the unvarnished reality of feudal warfare. It was a system where human life was often devalued, and power was the ultimate currency. The magnificent castles and tales of honor were built on a foundation of conquest, and that conquest had a very real, very human cost. The stories of the nameless captives are a crucial, if somber, part of that history. By looking into this darker side, we don't diminish the samurai's skill or their place in history. Instead, we gain a richer, more nuanced perspective. It reminds us that history is rarely black and white, and heroes and villains are often a matter of perspective. The silent suffering of the captives is a testament to the true price of war. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a lesser-known aspect of samurai history. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into the hidden corners of the past. Let me know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to see uncovered. Until next time, stay curious.